So my name's Parker,
My name is Quincy.
My name's Michaela.
My name is Caitlin.
and we decided to do our discussion on question number 3 about faith and how you can struggle with your faith. And I wanted to start us off with a question or with a quote from the book Night by Ellie. It's on page 34, chapter 3, line 16. Never shall I forget those flames which consumed my faith forever. Never shall I get that nocturnal silence which deprived me for all eternity of the desire to live. Never shall I forget those moments which murdered my God and my soul and turned my dreams to ashes. So this happened in the book closer to when Ellie's dad was getting really sick and about to die, and when he was really starving and all the other Jews were starving and there were a bunch of bystanders not helping them. He was really just confused as to why God would put them through all this when they've just trusted him and promoted his ideas, and they're just confused as to why he's going to put them through all this suffering and not help them at all. But then once he gets out of the concentration camps, he rediscovered his faith, and he later on calls himself weak for not keeping up with his faith, which I found pretty interesting.
Just going off of that with Ellie's faith, not only his faith, but seeing the faith of others around him kind of deteriorate towards the end. And it kind of gives himself this glimmer of hope of how his faith could be a lot worse, because he's seeing these other people's faith go so much farther down. And when a rabbi from a small town in Poland says, "It's over, God is no longer with us," before the selection, we feel as though Ellie has seen the lowest when it comes to faith. And in this part where these simple 8 words were saying, he's pretty taken aback from this. And we see this little tiny glimmer of hope in Ellie. And Ellie states that if the rabbi could only have kept his faith in God, if only he could have considered the suffering a divine test, he would not have been swept away by the selection. And again, we see this hope and faith come from him, and it shows how even though all these terrible and inhumane things are happening to and around him, not only to himself but to other people, he's still trying with everything he has left in him to keep his faith strong, even though with his father and just everything going on around him, it's slowly taking a toll on him, but he's trying his hardest to keep his faith.
So going off of that, I feel like it would be very hard to keep your faith at a concentration camp where he went. I think Ellie was a really role model for me, because he overcame a lot in the concentration camp. He watched his mom and sister literally walk over to the gas chambers, and they didn't know what was happening. They told him, "Oh, we're gonna have a 15-minute shower, a hot shower," and they were actually going to their death, which is really hard. And I don't think I could keep my faith with stuff like that happening to my family.
And basically, going off of what Michaela just said, saying that it was kind of hard to still have faith going through all that. But Ellie said in the text that in the beginning there was faith, which is childish, and that really stood out to me, because I'm thinking it's kind of hard to keep faith with going through all that. But with Corey, she was able to keep faith because of the simple fact she had a sister with her, and then the way she was brought up to help out the Jews and stuff, and just regardless of, because they was Christians, regardless of what was going on, they was willing to put their life in danger to help others. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Moving on to Corey, like Quincy said, I mean, with Betsy being there with her and them being together all the time, they kind of worked off of each other, and they, in a way, kept each other in check when it came to their faith. For instance, in chapter 14, titled "The Blue Sweater," after a guard arranges for Corey to work with Betsy in the knitting room, they no longer go in there because of the fleas and everything. And just another way that they keep each other in check is that in November, in chapter 13, when the prisoners receive coats, Betsy weakens. And when a guard mocks and hits Betsy, Corey attempts to rush at him, but Betsy stops her and reminds her to only see Jesus in her heart. And that's when later Betsy's sickness got worse and her cough turned bloody, and Corey brings her to the hospital before she gets better in chapter 14.
So when Betsy dies, Corey's faith grows stronger because she wanted to trust God just like her sister did. And I think that would be really hard to really trust like your sister did, because she wanted to be more so like her sister and just.
Yeah, also thought that it was a little bit easier for Corey and Betsy to kind of keep their faith because they did have each other. They had their family with them. And, versus Ellie, he just had him and his father, and he kind of had to grow up really quickly when Corey and Betsy were already, I think it was in their 40s. And they also had a little bit of better treatment. Like Michaela mentioned that they received coats in the camps. And I mean, Ellie didn't even get sheets. They had them running without shoes in the freezing cold. And one quote that really stuck out to me in the hiding place was, "Some knowledge is too heavy. You cannot bear it. Your father will carry it until you are able." And I just thought that was a pretty strong quote, because they really just put all of their faith in God and that everything would turn out okay, no matter what happened. And then going into Job about faith, I just found it really hard to grasp the fact that God would allow Satan to torture and punish Job for what he did, when all Job has done was believe in God and teach his children to praise God. And then it says in there, God accepts Satan's challenges. I was kind of shocked when he did this, because why would God do this when all Job has done was worship him? And then the end of the story, it quotes, "God gives him a new home, a new fortune, and new children." And yes, God rewarded him for continuing to stay faithful. But what about all of his previous children and previous house? What about all of those memories that are now lost, and all of those loved ones that are suddenly gone? Because he has a whole new life that he has to create new friendships with and new relationships with. And he just had to start life all over again. So I'm just still questioning kind of how this helped anything at all. And I just don't understand why God would play around with one of his most faithful servants. And I think this whole story pretty much defines pedagogic theodicy, which is just the justification of suffering, because God tries to justify why he's making Job suffer through this, but I don't understand why God would think this is okay.
I also think, just commenting off of Parker, like I also just don't understand how this God giving him this new fortune and family and all these things as like a reward, but really I don't quite understand how it can be rewarding when he already had a family and he had what he wanted and made his life. But now he's having to just completely restart over, and like it's supposed to be this kind of rewarding thing, but I really don't feel like it would be to most of us in a way.
Yeah, that they pretty much said it spot on, but the thing that really stuck out to me with Job is that keeping your faith like that, and really, I can't even wrap my head around just having 10 kids, them suffering like they did, and then having 10 more, and the love that you had for the first 10 children don't just go away just because you had 10 more. God just really, like, for me in my life, God is the center of my life. But he works in mysterious ways, and I don't understand sometimes, and it's hard for me to keep my faith like that, but I could never imagine to keep my faith like Job did.
Job's ability to maintain his faith while enduring pointless suffering is almost remarkable, because he stated in the text that when I was born into this world, I was naked and had nothing. When I die and leave this world, I will be naked and have nothing. The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Praise the name of the Lord. And that's kind of it's almost confusing how you were able to just still praise him when you was his most faithful servant, and he bragged on your name to be his most faithful servant to Satan, and him just allowing you to go through this pain just to show Satan that you still won't deter your faith against him.
Yeah, going off of that, there's a quote in the book of Job. It says, "Then the Lord said to Satan, have you noticed my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is a good, faithful man. He respects God and refuses to do evil." So that just even shows like God knows how worthy Job is, and yet he still just lets Satan torture and punish him just for fun and games, just to see how he'll react.
With Kushner going through from this suffering, he stated in his text that we give people the best possible reason for being good, for avoiding sin, and by believing that we can maintain the image of God as all loving, all powerful, and totally in control. But when you going through, I feel like when you are going through this, it's kind of hard to see that God is in total control. And I find that, and I can relate to that actually.
So I'm just gonna tell a personal story because this really goes with Kushner. I've had very, very traumatizing things happen in a couple of years. My grandmother had a hernia. I didn't get to play last year. Like that was just really hard for me to keep my faith through. But my family is really like, that's what got me through, which having a family that gets you through is very, very important, and they are God driven, and I wish I was more God driven like they are. But with like keeping your faith, God is gonna, if you are a Christian like myself, God will provide and will bless you with stuff. Even though he takes away, he will provide you back. Just like when he, I'm gonna talk about Job, but that really what is bringing me back. But like I said about the kids, like my aunt lost her first baby, and then she was blessed with 3 more. So like when God, like I said, when God does provide, he will bless you with whatever will happen. And I really struggle with not playing, but God got me through, and now I'm back out on the field, and it's just like I need to have faith more, because I feel like that's what I need to do, because he will bless me with whatever I need.
Just going off of that with another personal thing that I kind of relate with Michaela on is when I transferred here last year, I really like left my people. I left my old college and like everything that I had surrounded my life with for 2 years of my life. And then I had to pack and leave with Coach Bria Taylor, leaving all that behind without even thinking about it. And getting here, I really struggled in my faith, kind of like where I would go next. Like if I would have those type of people, if I would have the same support system I had, and just me and my family, and just within myself trying to configure all that out. And now that I'm here, like I wouldn't ask for anywhere else to be. I have the greatest people in my life, sometimes better than what I used to have. And it's just another way God has blessed me in a way that's even better than losing what I did lose.
Yeah, I think that's also pretty good examples as to why Corey and Betsy kept their faith for so long, because they had each other just like you guys had family, and you created new families. But with Kushner, I was also very impressed with him because his son died, but he still kept his faith and he still pushed through it for his family. Like he just stayed so strong. And I think sometimes when the medicine doesn't work, when science doesn't work, sometimes you just have to keep faith, because that's the only thing left you have when all else is failing. And I just thought that was really impressive that he was able to keep all of his faith throughout probably the most difficult time of his life, just watching his son suffer. So for me personally, one of Ellie's approach that I found most helpful in shaping my own response to the problem of unmerited pain, because he lost his faith during these concentration camps. And honestly, I most definitely would have too if I went through what he went through. I probably would not have survived as long as he did, just because I wouldn't have had anything to look forward to, because I would have just been like, there's nothing better. Like, we're all gonna die. And I found it impressive that he only blamed God a little bit for all of this suffering, because for me, I have to see someone in order to blame them, and I would have blamed this on Hitler, but Ellie never saw Hitler during this time, and so he just kind of just had to blame it on his faith and on God, because why would God bring Hitler and do this act to him? So I just thought that was pretty impressive. And that the fact that he was able to go out of there and forgive those people who like threw bread at them and watch them fight like savages. And I don't know, that just takes a lot of mental strength, in my opinion.
I personally feel like in different situations, I could relate to Ellie as well as Corey. Going in, if I had someone like Betsy, like Corey did, I feel like it wouldn't be as troubling as it was with Ellie. He did have his dad, but it really wasn't the same as Corey and Betsy, where they kind of kept each other in check, kept each other in line, and they had each other's backs no matter what. And they would go to war for each other, and they always made sure they were keeping their faith. And like Michaela said earlier, when Betsy passed away, it made her faith even stronger, because then she had to do it for Betsy. She had a reason to do it. And I feel like they both had reason, but Betsy was there with Corey the entire time and made sure that everything was okay between them. So I feel like if I was in their situation, either Ellie or Corey, Ellie, yes, I would probably lose my faith, like Parker said, because I wouldn't have anyone else to blame if I didn't physically see the reasoning or like know exactly what was going on. I would just blame it on God, and why would God do this to me, and why is he putting me through these inhumane suffering and all this stuff, as well as my family. But on the other hand, if I had someone like Betsy, I feel like I would be stronger and last longer.
So I can relate to Corey more than anybody, because having that person there to tell you, okay, you need to keep your faith, like we just need to look up, like we need to look at God, and he's always going to be there, like that's a drive for you to be better. And I think when her sister did die, her faith definitely, I feel like it took her a little bit longer to have faith because of her sister, but her faith definitely grew a lot more when Betsy died.
The personal approach that I find most helpful is Corey, because I have that, like, you know, that Corey and Betsy relationship. I had that same relationship with my brother, actually, because when I was around like the age of 12, and he's 3 years older than me, my mom was going through, something. She was very ill. She couldn't walk for at least 6 months, and going through that, seeing the only person that, that's been the strongest person in your life go through so much at a young age, you're confused on like why this happened to me now, because I was just getting to middle school, I was just finding new friends, and a lot was going on within school and then within my mom. We didn't know where we were gonna stay at, we was moving out of houses. But my brother kept my faith strong, because he always told me like, it's something good gonna happen at the end. Like just keep strong, because he was really involved in church and I wasn't. But just having him there with me and just trusting him basically, and just keeping my faith in God, that really just like really helped me through. And I felt like that's just some ways that I relate to Corey.
This is kind of off topic, but going back to what Kaylin and Michaela said about like Ellie fighting for his father and Corey fighting for Betsy, like I think that also helped them with their faith. Like they have to keep fighting, because otherwise everything they've gone through was for nothing. Like they feel like they have a duty to the loved ones that they lost to keep fighting and keep surviving, because they would have wanted them to survive and grow up and grow old and be happy again and be free.
Just like going back, I spoke about this in my PowerPoint in class, and it's just how they've taken all these struggles and their struggle with their faith throughout all this time. They've taken it afterwards, after the Holocaust, and they've turned it into a good thing where they're helping others. Corey afterwards traveled to 64 different countries speaking about the gospel and just sharing her life and her struggle with her faith, and just telling people and teaching them how they can also get through hardships with their faith. And Ellie also did the same, where he would go and read scripture, and we also in class watched the interview with Oprah, and he spoke on that as well with her.
Yeah, I think what we've all gained from this is we've learned a lot about suffering, and that history has taught us a lot, and we're very lucky to have these people who write these stories and tell us their experiences, because we can read off of them and learn from them and not make the same mistakes again, hopefully. You guys have anything else to say? Well, that's all we have. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.